Okay, we're holding a daf Yudam Bet on the second line, Chagigot. So we saw last time that the Mishnah said there are certain halachot that are considered keharim tulim b'sa'ara. They are mountains that are hanging on here, meaning that there is not a lot of psukim in the Torah that talks about these halachot, and yet there is a lot of halachot on them. All right, kehararin hatiluim b'sa'ara. So one of them was the halacha of Hagigot. So says the Gemara, really is Hagigot. So says the Gemara on Daf Yud Amid Bet, second line. You told me in the Mishnah that the halachot of Hagigot, bringing a carbon Chagiga, is like mountains hanging on here, meaning there's very few psukim, but there's a lot of halachot about them. But is that really true when it comes to Chagiga? Why? We have psukim about Chagiga in the Torah. It says about Pesach, v'chagotem oto chag la'Hashem l'dorotechem. On Shavuot it says, v'asita chag Shavuot la'Hashem elokecha. It says by Sukkot, v'chagotem oto chag la'Hashem shivat yamim b'shana. So you have in all three holidays, it says the word chag over there. So we have Pesukim, says the Gemara. So what are you telling me that it's halachot are like mountains hanging on here because there's no Pesukim to talk to us about the Korban Chagiga? So the Gemara says, like Tzricha, you're right, that maybe there are Pesukim at Korban Chagiga, but this is according to what Rav Papa asked Abaya. Rav Papa said to Abaya, how do I know when it says in the Torah, Chagotem oto Hagla Hashem, that it means a korban? It means a zevach. It means a korban chagiga. The word chag, chagiga, all it means is to celebrate a festival. It doesn't mean an actual korban. So maybe all it means in the Torah, Chagotem oto Hagla Hashem, you should celebrate a festival to Hashem. Nothing about a korban chagiga. Dilma chogu chaga kaman rachman. Just says, as Rashi says, to be happy. Or Tosafot says, a chog could also be like maholot, as in circles and dancing, to be a happy dancing time. Okay. So the Gemara wants to disprove Rav Papa's question and saying, chag cannot just mean a good, happy time. Rather, it means a korban. How do I know? It says, Moshe and Aaron came to power and they said, Hashem said they should go and celebrate in the midbar. Does this also mean just a happy time without a korban? And if you're going to say, yeah, that's true, but the pasuk then says, Moshe said to Paroi, you're going to give us zevachim and alot. You're going to give us korbanot. So you see that the word chag previously must be the korbanot, because now we're saying you're also going to give us a korban, which is not necessarily true. Dilma hachi kamarachmana. Maybe this is what the pasuk means. You, Par, are going to give us zvachim. What type of zvachim? Not a korban chagiga. Ichlu ushtu v'chagu chaga kamai. Give us regular meat, right? We're going to give us regular animals, and we're going to cut them, and we're going to do regular shchita, just so we can eat them. Nothing to do with the korban chagiga. Nothing to do with the korban. Just we're going to do a regular meat. So maybe by a chogu also means regular meat. Doesn't mean necessarily a korban chagiga. The Gemara says, "Lo salki datach." Don't let you think. Don't think that. Dichtiv v'lo yolin chaylev chagi yad boiker. Says, don't allow the fat of the festival to lay till morning. What is this? Usually, when you bring a korban, the fats of the korban have to go on the mizbeach. Okay, and from the day you brought it, it has to go up before the morning, for the next morning. So they have the whole night to bring it up on the mizbeach. So the pasuk says, "V'lo yalin chelev hagi ad boker. Don't let the holiday carbon, so to speak, the carbon chagiga, that the fat shouldn't stay till morning. And if you say that the word chag just means a regular carbon, a regular shchita, and not nothing to do with carbon, tarba l'chaga itle, does a regular animal that you shech to eat, so you need to bring its fat up on the mizbeach? There's no such halacha. Vidilma, this is where it says, so what's the proof? The chag must mean carbon chagiga. Where says no. Dilma hachi kam rachmana. When it says lo yalin chel chagi ad boiker, doesn't mean he's a carbon chagiga. El chel of abab is man chag lo yalin. It means if you happen to bring a carbon during the time of the Yom Tov, then you can't leave its fat until the morning. That's what it doesn't mean. Carbon chagiga. It means if you happen to bring a carbon during the chag. Bar says if that's true, habab is man chag hu de lo yalin. Ha the chol hashana kulo yalin. So implying from there, if you're bringing it on Yom Tov, you cannot let the fat last till the morning. You have to burn on the mizbeach earlier. But in the rest of the year, I could leave it, but that's also not true, right? We have pasuk kol halayla ad haboker, all the night until the morning kitiv. So we have a pasuk that says all year. So what's so special about Yom Tov? It must be talking about the Karban Chagiga. Gemara says no, Dilma. Perhaps im hahu hava min hahu laaseh. Tav rachmana hi lilav. You know what? Both psukim are needed. Kol halayla ad haboker. That's to teach you an asay. Go and put the fats on the mizbeach before morning, and then lo yalin chel chagi ad boiker. That's teaching me don't do it. Lo ta'aseh. It's a lav. Don't do it. Mar says lav. I don't need this pasuk lo yalin chel chagi ad boiker for the lav. Katav kira aharina. We have a different pasuk for that. It says, "V'lo yalim min abasar asher tizbach be'erev b'yom rishon laboker." Don't last until the morning. So you have a pasuk already says don't allow it. V'lo yalim, it's already allowed. So the Gemara says, "V'dilma la'avor alav b'shnei lavin." Maybe it was just to tell you if you do it, you're going to be over shnei lavin, two lavin. And Tosefot um, wants to tell us in La'avor Allah B'Shnei Lavin that it's easier to learn two Lavin than to learn a Korban Hadash. So it's easier to learn that there's two Lavin than to make up a new halacha about a Korban Chagiga. So maybe that's what it is. There's no proof that you have to bring a Korban Chagiga. Either Korban Chagiga, when it says the word Chag, it just means to have a happy, joyous time, or dancing around. And when it says Lo Yalim Chel Chagi Ad Boker, it means if you happen to bring a carbon, don't let it to be in the morning if it's on Yom Tov, but it's also true. So it makes a second lav if it's on Yom Tov, right? And then you have a lav regular for the whole year. And you have what's it called, Naseh. Don't leave it, leave it, and make sure it goes, call light out of the baker, is your asay. So you have no proof anywhere about a carbon chagiga. So Elati means bar midbar. Where do we learn it from? We learn it from midbar. Kitim hacha. It says over here. Vaya choguli bar midbar. Right? We saw this pasuk in Shemot. Make a celebration in the midbar. Uchtiv hatam. And it says in the Navi Amos. It says hazivachim uminham higashtem li bamidbar. Bring the zavach, right, and the mincha. These are clearly offerings. Bring them to me in the midbar. Malahalan zivachim. Avkan zivachim. So you do gezerah shavah midbar. Here in Pasuk in Amos tells us about the midbar and they're bringing korbanot. You have a kuli midbar. But midbar teaching me they're bringing a korban chagiga. Or 1 second. So if you have a gezerah shavah, that's one of the ways to be darshan in the Torah. So if you have a gezerah shavah, this is legit. So so why is it considered like mountains that are hanging on hairs? So the Gemara says, "Divrei Torah, divrei Kabbalah, lo yalfinan." We don't learn. Usually, we don't do Gezer Shava from the Torah to a Navi. Usually, it's just in the Torah itself. We don't do it from Nach. The fact that we're doing it from Nach is only an asmachta. It's only a support, but it's not the way you actually learn it. So therefore, here you have halachot Chagiga that it's considered like here mountains hanging on hears because you have so many halachot about Korban Chagiga, and yet there is no straight up source for those halachot. Okay, so that is the section about Korban Chagiga. The next thing the Mishnah said was Me'ilah, the Me'ilot, the halacha of Me'ilah. What is Me'ilah? There is Hektish. Okay, some unconcentrated property for Hektish is going to be for the Beit HaMikdash. And then someone unintentionally used it. The person who used it unintentionally, he must pay the value to the Beit HaMikdash plus a fifth, plus the Homesh, plus he has to bring a korban known as Asham Me'ilot. Okay? Now, the Mishnah said this halacha of Me'ilah is one of those halachot where there's no real source in the Torah. So they're like Haranin Hatalim B'Sa'ara. They're like mountains hanging on here. So the Gemara's question is, what do you mean? Ketivan, we have psukim, right? In the Torah, in Sefer Vayikra, in Perek Hey, Pasuk Tedvav Tedzayin, it says, Nefesh, ki tim'o ma'al, v'chata'a b'shkaga mekoche Hashem, v'hevi et Hashem ol Hashem, means the korban Hashem. V'dasher chata min ha'kodesh yishalem, and he pays it back, v'et mishoto yosef alav, and he adds a fifth to it. So all the halachot are there. So it's in the psukim. So what do you mean? They're like mountains hanging on here that there's no real support for it. So Amar Ravi Bar Chama, it's only needed for this case, which we learn in the following Mishnah. It says, Hashaliach she'asa shlichoto bal habayit ma'al. Lo asa shelichoto shaliach ma'al. All right, what's going on over here? There's this guy. We're going to call him Johnny. All right, Johnny, he takes a couple of dollars and he says, I'm giving this to the Beit HaMikdash. He puts it on the side in his house. Then his friend comes and he says, oh, listen, do me a favor. You go outside, buy me a lunch special. He takes some money, and by mistake, he takes the money that he says he's going to give to the Beit HaMikdash. He takes Hektish money. And he gives it to his friend, Tony, to go and buy him the lunch special from the store. So now, the lunch special he wanted was the burger lunch special. Tony goes to the store and he buys the lunch special with that money that Johnny gave him. Says the Mishnah, since he did what the Balabayit told him to do, the Balabayit is the one who did Me'ilah. Because he's just the Shliach. Shliach Sha'adam Kemoto. The Shliach of a person is like himself. So the guy who's a Shliach, he's the one, he didn't do it. The guy who sent him did it. So he did Me'ilah. But if he didn't do his Shlichut, for example, instead of getting the burger lunch special, Tony decided, you know what? My friend needs chicken. Burger meat's not good for him. He went and he got him chicken instead. Oh, now, who did the Me'ilah? Who did the Me'ilah now? Tony did the Me'ilah. Why? Because no one told him to do what he did. Since he did it, and he did it with Hektish money, he's the one who did Me'ilah, and he has to pay back, and he has to bring the Korban. Okay. Now, that's the halacha brought down in the Mishnah. What's the difficulty with this halacha? 1 second. Why is the Balabayit being considered he did Me'ilah? He sent the Shliach. We have a halacha usually throughout Talmud En shliach ledvar avera. We don't make a shliach for an avera. Meaning, if I tell somebody, go and kill that guy, the guy who kills him, so I tell Reuven, go kill Shimon, right? And then Reuven kills Shimon. Reuven cannot say, oh, Moshe told me. You can't say that because ain't shliach ledvar avera. If Hashem said don't kill, and this guy said kill, who are you supposed to listen to? So ain't shliach ledvar avera. So why over here do we say the Balabayit should pay Me'ilah? He, in the end of the day, there's no shlichus l'dvar avera. So how could you say he should pay the Me'ilah? Now, the truth is, it's a little difficult to say this. Why? Because usually, there's an avera. Here, Tony doesn't know nothing. The guy told him, here's some money. Go buy me a burger lunch special. He didn't know anything otherwise, right? He didn't know what's going on otherwise. So perhaps you can't say that over here. But regardless, says the Gemara, this is why it's considered mountain hanging on here, because be'emet, the balabayit should be patur, because ain't shliach ledvar avera. Moreover, Rabbi says, no. This is not difficulty. My kushya, what difficulty is here? That you're saying this is the mountain hanging on here. Dilma shani me'ilat. Deyalfa het mitruma. Ma hatam shulcho shel adam kimoto. Afkan shulcho shel adam kimoto. There is a gezerah shava. There is a special gezerah shava het from truma. It says by truma v'chata'a b'shkaga mikodesh Hashem. Okay. No, b'me'ilah it says v'chata'a b'shkaga mikodesh Hashem. They use the het. And it says by teruma v'lo tesu alav het. We learn from them that there is shlucho shel adam kemoto, just like there is by truma, so there is me'ilah. Af she'me'ilah hi davar avera. Even though me'ilah is a davar avera, right, so to speak, you're doing the wrong thing. But it learns from teruma, so there is shlichut by me'ilah, even if it seems to be the davar avera. So there's no question here. It's not hararim at kulim misara. That's the halacha. We learned it from the gezerah shava. So there's nothing. There's no lack of source over here. Fine. Then Rav says, "Oh no, lo nitzacha el chedetanya." We need it for this following braita. What is it? Niskar bal habayit v'lo niskar shaliach. Oh, okay. So remember, Johnny sends Tony to go buy him the lunch special with the money of Hegdish. Right? He didn't know it was the money of Hegdish. Now, as Tony is on his way to buy the lunch special, Johnny looks around and he sees, I gave him the wrong money. I gave him the Hegdish money. At this point, what happened? Shaliach ma'al. Even though Tony went and got exactly what Johnny said and got him the exact lunch special, who did the Me'ilah here? Now it's going to be Tony and not Johnny. The Gemara's question is, Shaliach Aniyah my Ka'avid. What did this poor Shaliach do? He did exactly what was told to him. He didn't know anything. And now he's doing Me'ilah because that guy realized. This is the halakha of mountains hanging on here because it makes no sense and there's no source for this, and therefore it's considered mountains hanging on here, and that's what is the Me'ilah, says the Gemara. Now we have to understand, why is it the guy who sent him, once he realized that it was Hegdish money, even though the Sheikh is going to do exactly what he said, how come he's not considered doing Me'ilah? So there's two schools of thought of this. The first school of thought is, hey, listen, he doesn't want him to be the Sheikh anymore, right? You can only be my agent as long as I want you to be my agent. If I don't want you to be my agent anymore, you're not my agent. So you're the one doing Me'ilah. I have nothing to do with you. That's one school approach. Remember, the Rambam and Rashi don't go with that approach. Rambam and Rashi say, listen, this guy is still doing because you told him what to do. Right? You don't want him to do what you want to do, but you told him to do it. He's doing what you want. Right? Okay, right now you don't want, but you sent him already. It's already in progress. It's in motion. So why is he not doing, why is he not considered Me'ilah? the guy who sent him. It says Rashi in the Rambam, because they're considered mezid. Now that he knows that he sent him with the hektish money, it's no more shkaga. It's not anymore accident by he wasn't sure it happened. He knows vaday now he sent. He knows for sure he sent the hektish money. If such is the case that he knows for sure he sent hektish money, then he's a mezid. And if he's a mezid, there's no korban. There's not the way to be tikkun with the korban. There's no paying back. That's not the tikkun for it. That's not the right fix for it. So therefore he doesn't have meal. So who's the only one who did it bishkagat? Who's the only one who did it accidentally? The shliach. So he has to bring the korban and pay back and everything. Okay. Over Rashi says, 1 second. What's so hard here? My kushya. Maybe it's like the case of a person who takes the coins from a hektish makom and he takes it to a non-hektish place. Anybody who inadvertently spent sacred money and who is liable on the account, okay, but once the sender, so what we're saying is that listen, anybody who accidentally uses the coins, right? He's me'ilah. This guy accidentally used it, so it's me'ilah. It's nothing to do with mounted hanging on here. Usually, if you accidentally use hektish coins, it's me'ilah. This guy accidentally used hektish coins. Elam Rashi says, you need it for this following Mishnah. This is the case where it is mountains hanging on here. Natal even or Korah shel hektish. Someone who took a stone or beam from hektish, he didn't do milah. He gave it to his friend. Then he did milah and his friend did it because the guy gave it to him. Mikti, let's see. Mishkash shekala. Let's consider what's happening over here. Malihu umali havero. What difference does it make whether he takes it for himself or whether he gives it for a friend? Why when he takes the beam for himself, he didn't do milah? He gives it to his friend, now he's considered done milah. Why? Makes no sense. That's the halacha, and therefore it's a no source halacha, and as such, it's mountains hanging on here. Umar says, "My kushya, what's so hard to explain this? I can explain to you with the principle. Look at the Shmuel, the Amar Shmuel, hacha." Begizbor hamisurot lo avnei binyan askinan. This case is talking about the gizbor, the treasurer. The treasurer, he's got hektish money all over, right? So if he's taking hektish money and he's bringing it home, he didn't do milah. He's the treasurer. He has all sorts of bags of hektish that he needs to get to the Beit Hamikdash. So therefore, when he gives it to his friend, okay, now he did milah, right? But he has it at home, not considered milah. Anyway, he puts it, it's his possession, and he's the treasurer, so he can put it anywhere. Rather, the challenging point, the point that's considered mountains hanging on here, if you put it into his house, he's not going to be considered doing milah, even though you put it into his house, until he had hana of a shabbat pruta from sitting underneath it or whatever, using it. But it says, Mikadi, let's take a look. What has changed? Mali dad or Mali lo dad? What makes a difference if he's underneath it or he's not underneath it? At the end of the day, he's using it. So therefore it makes no sense. Therefore, there's no source for this halacha. Therefore, it's like mountains hanging on here. Umay kusha, what's so hard to understand it? Then look at Rab. Maybe it's like Rab. Rab. Kigon shanicha pi aruba. Idar ba'in. Lo dar. Lo dar be'lo. It depends. You have to know the case. The case here is the guy just took it and he put it on top of his roof. He didn't put it into the house. He just laying on top of the roof. Now, if you're getting hana from it, chai, didn't milah. But if you're just laying on the roof, he didn't get any hana from it, then he didn't do milah. So that's why it says it. If you die or not, if you live underneath it, you don't live underneath it. It is a difference. So it's not mountain hanging on here. We have an explanation for it. El olam kidrava. The Gemara goes back and says, the truth is, it's like Rava said, that if you send an agent to do something and you find out it's Me'ilah money, and then I find out and I don't want him to do it anymore, right? So we say the shliach did Me'ilah and not the owner, right? Either because he doesn't want it or because he's now amazed. And that's the hard part to understand. This guy did absolutely not. And this question that you have about anyone who accidentally spends hagdish is already considered me'ilah. Hata mideya dat ikazuzeh de hektish. There, in that case, the guy knew that there was hektish coins around. Hey, he messed up which coins. He went out, whatever it was. He should have paid attention. Therefore, over there, he is me'ilah. I have me'ilah. But this guy, this Tony, Bechorek, what do you want from him? He came to Johnny's house. Johnny said, "Go get me a lunch special." Tony's a nice guy. Said, "Listen, Johnny, I'll help you out." Johnny gave him money. He doesn't know where this money came. He doesn't know anything. And why would he be Me'ilah? He doesn't know nothing. He didn't know to look, to not to look. Me'ilah, not Me'ilah. Heck, there's not. He doesn't know. This is mountains hanging on here that this guy's Hayav for Milah over here. They have to pay it back with the fifth and a Korban. Bet the guy, what is he just trying to be a nice guy? He ended up messing up. Perhaps you learn from here that if you're going to be a Shliach, you better know very well what you're getting into. And you better understand very well what money you have. Okay, let's move on to the next few cases. There are few scriptural references, yet there are numerous laws. Tana, nigaim ba'holot mikra mu'at v'alachot merubot. Regarding nigaim, this is tzarat, right? The leprosy on the hand, on the clothing, on the structures. V'oholot. Oholot is the tuma ohel. You have a tumat med be'ohel, a dead body in a tent. How it spreads, the tuma. So you have mikra mu'at v'alachot merubot. You have little psukim and a lot of halachot. Gemara says what? Nigaim mikra mu'at. By tzarat, you have very little psukim. Nigaim mikra merubahu. You have tons of parashiot, tons of psukim in the Torah talking about leprosy. When it comes to leprosy, you have many psukim and you have very little halachot. But ohalot mikra mu'at v'halachot merubot. By tumat ohel, you have few psukim and you have a lot of halachot. What do I have to know this for? A practical difference. If I had a question about tzarat, ayin b'krei, go look in the psukim. But if I had a question in ohel, tumat ohel, ayin b'matnitan, then you have to look in the Mishnah. Okay, dinin. When it comes to dinin, to monetary law, we said that there is support for these laws. Michtav kitivan. The Gemara says, "What do you mean you just have support? Everything's spelled out." Oh, lo nitzchel ke'Rabbi. You only need it for what Rebbe taught. The Tanya will be Omer nefesh tachat nefesh mamon. When it says in the Torah nefesh tachat nefesh, it doesn't mean soul for soul, right? Rather, it means you pay back money, mamon. Maybe it means actual life. So too, when it says by the woman who has a fetus and she gets hurt and the fetus dies, it says over there you pay with money. Also, too over here, we'll see it's money and and not necessarily what's it called, killing the fellow. Okay. Right, so if you kill Bishkaga, right, we'll have to pay that. Fine. Okay, so that's what's the mean support. Because it doesn't say fairish in the Torah, it says never shtach nafish. How do we know it's money? Oh, that's how I know. Fine. Avodot, korbanot is also support. It's not actually written down. The Gemara says what? Michtav ketivani had a sefer vayikra. It's all about korbanot. Nelitzach el halachot hadam. It means the halacha of dam. The Tanya of Hikrivu, it says you should bring the blood. We learned that means zu zo kabbalat hadam, receiving the blood. When it says bring the blood, it means receiving the blood. Because sometimes you don't really need to bring the blood. You have to bring the blood to sprinkle on the mizbeach. Sometimes you do the carbon right next to the mizbeach. You don't have to bring it anywhere, right? So hikrivu means to accept the blood. But it brings in the lashon of bringing it. Why? It says he shall bring it all and cause it to go up in the smoke of the altar. This is bringing the limbs to the ramp to burn them up. Do not think that the bringing of the blood is not part of the service. That the Kohen has to wear the right kohan, the right begodim, that he has to have the right machshavot, right? All that has to happen, even if you travel the blood. Even sometimes you don't need to travel the blood, but when you do, it's considered part of the full-fledged service, and it has to be done the right way. That halacha is not beferish in the psukim, therefore it's considered only a support. Taharot, when it comes to purity, it's also what's it called? One of those that you have only a support. What do you mean, Lord, support? You have so much about Miktav Kitivan, you have so much about purity. You only need it for the shear of the mikvah. What does that mean? That the loiktiva, that it's not written how much is the shear of the mikvah. The rachat b'sarah b'mayim, b'main mikvah, means in gathered waters. It's called b'sarah. Mayim should go for all of in a water that if you go inside, it could go for your whole body. They made the math. Amalama, it's a cubit by a cubit. By 3 cubics of water. That turns out to be Turned out to be arboim saw 40. The word of the machloka is it 332 versus 537 of Chaim on the Chazon Ish. I believe it's in liters of how much water you need to have in a mikvah at a minimum. Okay, tumot. When it comes to contamination, michtav kitivan. You have a lot of psukim. So where are you saying you don't have tumah in there's no support? There's only support for the halacha of tumah. You only need it for the halacha of you need a cheda'asha, a lentil size of a sheretz to be mitameh. The loktiv, the Tanya, it says bahem, you become tameh with them. You might think I need the entire sheretz, the entire creature to become tameh, tameh mehem, from them. I might think even from a little bit. Talmud behem. Talmud says behem. How is this possible? It's such a part that's considered like it's whole. It has to be the size of a lentil. Because the chomet, I think this is the snail or chameleon or something like that. And when it's small, it is the size of a bean. So therefore, it's considered a behem, and now it's considered mehem. Whereas Yehuda Omer, kiznava halita'a, the tail of a lizard. So a different opinion of what it has to be. But from here we see this halacha, the shear of the minimum amount of that sheretz that makes a person tameh, is not found with real scripture proof. Rather, it is a halacha that you learn that is supported with the psukim. One more. Arayot, when it comes to the law of illicit relations, michtav ketivan, they're written exclusively. The only one that's not written explicitly in the Torah is a person's own daughter having illicit relations with her, but not from his wife. Okay, so from another woman, it's his daughter, but it's not from his wife. There is no pasuk that says it's clear up. The law ketivan doesn't say it. How do we learn this? You learn henna from two psukim. One that talks about a man and his wife's daughter or his son's daughter, and another pasuk that talks about his own granddaughter or his granddaughter or his grandson that's not from his wife. So the case of his daughter that's not from his wife is not mentioned. But here we learn Shava and it's the same way as a daughter from his wife. Same thing if it's not his wife, still it's going to be Asur. And then we learn the punishment for the Seifa Zima Zima. They're the same way. It's with Seifa over there, same way it's Seifa over here. This halacha of his daughter is not from his wife is not written straight up, and rather it is only a someh. Hen gufei Torah. The Mishnah said these are the gufei Torah, meaning the last few that only are support. That's what we would assume. The judging, the taharot, tumot. The Gemara says no. Hani ein hanach lo. Only those last four, or that last list, is considered fundamental Torah, and the rest of them are not. Rather, it means that in the Mishnah, hen gufei Torah. Hen gufei Torah. All of them mentioned in the Mishnah. All of them are fundamentals of Torah. All of them must be learned, even the ones that are considered floating in the air, or mountains hanging on here, or those that have support. Everything that's written in the Torah is hen gufei Torah. Hadan Allah kol chayavin. Hadan Allah kol chayavin. Hadan Allah kol chayavin. We finished the first perek of Masechet Chagiga. Zag Baruch Shua Tov Lekulam.